On this episode of Locked On Grizzlies, Damichael, Cole, and I are talking G.G. Jackson as a long-term starter for the Memphis Grizzlies. We're going to do some NCAA Tournament scouting. It's big dance season, and we're excited to watch some prospects in the tournament coming up. Plus, we're going to preview Grizzlies, Warriors, all that and more on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Lock in with us.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It is a wild and wonderful Wednesday here on Locked On Grizzlies, and we are so thankful that you are joining us wherever you are on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get Locked On Grizzlies. Damichael, Cole, and I are thrilled that you're joining us. Hopefully you're an everydayer at this point, checking out the show every time an episode drops. But if not, if this is your first time stopping by all means, put up your feet, pick up a chair, stay a while. We're going to have some fun over the next 30-ish minutes here on Locked On Grizzlies. Again, we are proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every day. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Be sure to make us your first listen each and every day. Also, check out Locked On NBA and all the other great podcasts that are part of the Locked On Podcast Network like we are. Again, we're on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, literally anywhere you get a podcast. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe. By all means, it is all good. And I'm joined every time. It's a great day when Damichael Cole is with me and when I am with Damichael Cole, right? Because on our Tuesday episode, Damichael, you flew solo. And spoiler alert, that's going to happen again on tomorrow's episode because as I like to point out on X, while Damichael, the young, vibrant night owl, is getting ready to do Grizzlies After Dark, I am very much Homer Simpson. I'm the warm cinnamon bun in my bed, falling asleep. I'm very old and washed at this point. So Damichael will be with you solo coming up after Grizzlies Warriors, and we'll talk more about that game later on. But we're together today, Damichael, and you talked about something in yesterday's show that I wanted to kind of come back to because folks were talking about it on X. For those that aren't on social media, first off, good for you. You're making the right decision. But if you're not on X, you might have missed it. The conversation about G.G. Jackson being that starter. And I'm guilty of this, Damichael, right? I've said it's Marcus Smart or it's Vince Williams Jr. I'm interested in that conversation. I've always kind of pushed G.G. Jackson to the bench scorer role. And I still think personally, long-term, that's best for his development, right? If we want G.G. Jackson to be a contributor on a championship contending team, him doing so at, turning 20 next season, him doing that in his age 20 campaign for a championship contender, that's probably not the wisest use of him. But G.G. Jackson has put up some numbers as a starter this year. I asked for, on my most recent episode when I was on a couple shows ago, I asked for more Desmond Bane, G.G. Jackson connection. We got that in the game against the Kings. Maybe I'm missing something here, Damichael. Do you see – are we writing G.G. off too early? Or I'll speak for myself. Am I writing G.G. off too early for the starting conversation? Could it possibly be something like John Morant, Desmond Bane, G.G. Jackson, Brandon Clark, Jaren Jackson Jr., or something else going into opening night?
Man, Joe, did you see him defend?
That is the biggest reason why I'm okay with having this conversation.
It's tantalizing.
He stunk defensively. He was terrible. And that's the main thing that I locked onto when I talked about him being that bench scorer. He's not terrible anymore, Damichael. He has improved dramatically on that end of the floor.
And he's going to continue to because it's more mental. I don't think it was ever physical. The only physical thing, which we'll talk about a little bit more as we get into this segment, is the fact that he's 19. It's just natural teenage.
He's going against grown men.
He's going against grown men. Like, you look at him, his shoulders are so broad. You can tell, LeBron's always been huge, but you go look at 19, 20-year-old LeBron compared to 28, 29-year-old LeBron. It's a whole different ballgame. Same thing with every, Carmelo Anthony, Dwight Howard, all those guys. The point is, when you talk about him being a starter, from the standpoint of what he adds, like as someone who would accept that third, fourth scorer type role, I see it. Him playing alongside of Dez and Jaren, they all three of them eclipsed 20 points, and his came so smooth. None of it was forced. None of it was, man, I haven't scored in the whole first quarter, the whole second quarter. Let me go out in the third quarter and force up 5 shots to try to find a rhythm. It was none of that. It was just, oh, look, this ball's in my hands, easy shot, bucket. 4 of 8 on 3-pointers. I think he shot 8 of 14 overall. And so it was a mix, inside, out, comfortable shots, playing off of Dez really well. And he looked good in that role. Now, when you talk about him being the starter, to me, when we address this, and it'll be interesting to hear what you have to say after this as well. But to me, when we talk about GG Jackson entering the starting lineup, it has to be as a 3 for me. And because of the fact that he's not physical enough as a 4 yet. And that's kind of, I don't call it a knock on him at this point, honestly, because he's 19. Like when guys drive to the basket and they move him out of the way a little bit and they score, I'm like, he's 19, man. If that's happening when he's 22, then, maybe okay, all right, GG, or, it should happen a little bit less as he gets older and older. I mean, look at Jason Tatum right now. Like, you go back, look at rookie year, second year Jason Tatum, like, dude is huge now. So that's my point. He's going to grow into that body. And watching him play the 3 these last couple games, because we had Rafael Barlow on here on Locked On Grizzlies, and one of the questions that I asked him is, where do you see GG Jackson better projecting, as a 3 or a 4? And he said as a 4. I remember I was talking to Jaren Jackson Jr. about the same topic at one point. They were talking about how he probably better projects as a 4. But I don't think that's a knock against him as the 3, because yes, he probably does better project when he's 6'9", 225 with some muscle, at the 4, because he can rebound the basketball, especially when he's going to get a little bit stronger. I just think right now, what we've seen in the last couple games as a 3 is good enough for me to say that he can be a starter. I would not put him as the starter on this Grizzlies team, simply because you look at the Grizzlies situation. You got Vince Williams, you got Marcus Smart, you got GG Jackson. That's the way that I pointed it out in the show yesterday. I said, we've kind of zeroed in on this being hey, is Marcus Smart the starting 3 or is it Vince Williams? But we should, we're doing right now, we should open the idea of the fact that GG Jackson, with the way he defends, with the way he shoots the basketball, he can be the 3. I'm going to be nitpicky here. And one of the big reasons that I wouldn't start him at the 3, because you just mentioned championship type team. Like that's what we're talking about right here. If GG Jackson, you're on a developmental team, yeah, start him at the 3. Let him. But the thing with the Grizzlies is you need championship type plays. You need winning plays. GG Jackson, as great as he was in that game that I just mentioned, 0 assists again. He hasn't had more than 3 assists in a game. That's going to be a level where Marcus Smart and Vince Williams are both better than him as secondary facilitators. And when you play those teams that force that guy who's going to be standing in the corner to make plays, that's where GG Jackson probably will struggle right now. So I'm still going those guys. I bring him off the bench in a more comfortable role. But I think we're right on track here. We're talking about the idea of him as a starter.
You said a name a moment ago when you were talking about different types of players.
Yeah.
Carmelo Anthony. And I want to stress, I don't think they have even necessarily comparable games. They both can score the basketball, but they did it in a different way, right? The reason I bring up that comp is, if I remember correctly, and you're a student of the game, Damichael, as well, Carmelo Anthony started as a 3, and then he kind of transitioned. He was always that combo forward type that could play the 4. As his career went on, he almost exclusively became a 4, right? And then eventually was a 4 as his career concluded. I think that GG Jackson could be on a similar trajectory. Do I think he can play the 3 now? Yes. Can he do it for a championship contender as a starter? No. I would rather that be Marcus Smart or Vince Williams Jr. because of those winning plays, the ability to create offense for others. That matters a lot. I think that's a great way to maximize John Morant, is to have a secondary and tertiary creator off of the ball so that Ja can slant and slash and do all those things.
And Desmond Bane too, yeah.
Correct, absolutely. As time goes on, GG puts on those 20 or 30 good pounds over a couple of years. It's always funny to me. These guys don't lift weights in high school and AAU and college. All they do is play basketball, and then strength conditioning programs introduce them to the weight room, and they balloon up, right? Like Giannis is a great example of that. Yeah. Giannis didn't always look that way.
He didn't.
He looked more like Wembanyama than he looks as he does now. And that's what's terrifying about Wembanyama. Imagine a few years from now, after he's had some NBA strength conditioning off seasons. But I'm with you. We're on the same page here. And for me, the reason I picked long-term starter for this topic, because you did talk about this a little bit yesterday, I see Gigi as a long-term starter as the 4. I think that might be your answer. And again, when I say long-term, we're talking about having Desmond Bane, John Morant, and probably Jaren Jackson Jr. under contract around here into 2030 and beyond. So when I say long-term, I'm thinking long-term. Like these guys, as Jaren turns, 28, 29, 30 years old, as Ja approaches that number, Gigi Jackson will still be what, 25? Something like that. Yeah. And that's what I'm talking about, that long-term, being a core piece. I think Gigi Jackson could definitely be that. Let Damichael and I know what you guys think in the comments. We're on the same page with this. We think Gigi could be that long-term guy. Makes more sense as a 3 right now, but could be a long-term piece as a starter. Let us know in the comments. I know it got a little bit heated on social media in spots. But again, it's not meant to be hate on Gigi Jackson. The kid's pretty special, trying to find the best way for his development because he's still so young. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, Damichael Cole and I are going to be talking NCAA Tournament. The big dance is here. Very exciting times. We'll break down some prospects that we're watching, and we'll also make a little bit of an announcement here on Locked On Grizzlies. Looking forward to that. Stick around for that. But first, this episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by eBay Motors. Don't worry, no pause necessary this time around. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die car alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one car, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. With eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die whip alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available for United States customers. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we're talking NCAA Tournament and some names to watch. Stick with us. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am Joe Mullinax. That is Damichael Cole of the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. Make sure you're following him on X if you don't already do so, at Damichael C. Make sure you're following me on X at Joe Mullinax. We're having a great time here on this Wednesday edition of the show. We are on the eve of the NCAA Tournament. And no, we're not going to count the opening round or whatever they call it, the UVA. And I'm a UVA guy, right? We're not going to talk about that game because I can't. I don't have the heart to. All right. But, it's not Colorado State. We're not talking about that. We're talking about Thursday, Friday, the best 2 days in sports. Basketball starts at noon or 11 a.m. there in Memphis, and it goes all day long. It's going to be fantastic. That's what we're going to focus on here because the Memphis Grizzlies should be interested, right? They're going to have a lottery pick this year, depending on where it falls. Certain types of players from the college ranks will be in the mix for them. Damichael Cole, I'll let you go first because I feel like I've been talking here for a while. And plus, to be honest, my names are going to be predictable because I've been beating the drum of Fee Fi Fo Fum.
I knew it. I thought about saying his name. I thought about saying his name. I was like, bro, it's 100%.
I'm looking for Giants, Damichael Cole. Are we trying to win a championship or not? There's one glaring hole, to your point, that you've always thought. You say you don't understand trading Steven Adams. Oh, look, there's another 7'2" guy from UConn that may not be as good as Steven Adams right now, but he does a lot of Steven Adams things. So I'm going to talk about the Giants. I have a feeling you're going to go in a different direction.
I'm going to go in a different direction, but I will say this before I talk about those guys. He's growing on me, Joe. I've thought he's good, but it's like, the only thing that I'm against is just if you have the 6th pick, if you have the 7th pick, that's just you can't. I wouldn't be able to live with that if you got guys
5
averaging. Okay, all right, I get it. But I want to see Jacoby Walter out of Baylor. That's one of he's one of those, like, there are a couple freshmen that come to mind for me, guys that in March, think of like a Dante DiVincenzo or Grayson Allen after his freshman year, even though he came back. Those type of players that rise up in March and their draft stock just goes shoo. Like, there are a bunch of talented freshmen this year who could put themselves in position. But Jacoby Walter is someone I really want to see defensively. He's got the measurables. He's a wing playing for Baylor. I think Baylor is a 3 seed.
They're the 3 seed. Yep.
Yep.
A 3 seed. Yep.
They're a 3 seed. So they're gonna face some tough teams. Like after that first round matchup, you're gonna be in probably a 3-6 matchup or a 3-11, which means the team that beat a 6 seed. So he's the one guy I want to see. I feel like I've seen enough of Rob Dillingham at this point. I mean, I already know what he brings to the table. But the other big, and maybe you were going to say this guy too, I don't know. But I want to see Kyle Filipowski.
Ooh.
I want to see him because
I like Kyle Filipowski.
A
little bit more range than my boy Donovan Clingan.
I don't love him yet. I don't. But look, talking to, I know a lot of Duke fans. They're everywhere. You can't avoid those things for some reason.
Yeah, like Zach Kleiman.
No offense to
Shout
the
out
Duke.
to Zach Kleiman. If you're listening, we know you're a Dookie.
Yeah, that's the guy. Shout out to Zach Kleiman. But those Duke fans that I talk to, they call them those adjectives. Oh, he's a little soft and things like that. And that's the last thing the Grizzlies need.
Yeah, definitely need more, a lot more tough guys.
But if you watch the skill, it's some Porzingis type stuff in there. Like off the dribble, 7 feet, smooth, fatal turnaround jumper in the mid-range area, and he can get to it whenever he wants. He's comfortable. He's on balance. Very skilled for his size. And that's one guy that I really want to watch as well. Most of the wings, like that I said in the past that I wanted to watch, are the G League guys, and they're not going to be in this. And then Kevin McCullers is out. Kansas star guard, the one that I want to see.
Might be an upset there because Kansas got that guy out.
Hey, you hear it, Hammer Sanford. Joe just said it, Hammer Sanford. But with him being out, that would be the other guard outside of Jacoby Walter that I want to see a lot. And of course, I got to throw in one more. This is just like you're Mr. FIFA Fofum, I'm Mr. Bleed Orange. And, I got to throw my guy Dalton Connett in there. Now, here's the thing with Dalton Connett. And when I scout draft, Joe, how I try to determine who's a good player, like who's going to project well. I want to see you against NBA level talent. If you're scoring, I don't care what you're showing me against Oral Roberts. No disrespect to Oral Roberts, just first team that came to mind.
Shout out to Oral Roberts.
Yeah, they pulled some upsets before. But if you're going against one of those lowly teams, I don't care if you're doing fadeaways from the 3-point line and whatnot. Do it when you got 6'7" Justin Edwards from Kentucky in front of you, or Jacoby Walter in front of you, or one of those top-notch college basketball defenders. Do it when one of those guys are in front of you, and that's when I'll be impressed. So the point that I'm making here is you look at Dalton Connett, he's killed it this year. Unstoppable. Getting to the rim, 6'7", post up little guards, take the bigger guys off the dribble, movement shooter. He's got all of the offensive skills in the world, can play, make everything. I love his game. But the one thing that I'm still not sold on is when he goes against NBA level athletes. You look at when he played against Kentucky, and there are a couple other games that stand out to me as well, because and I specifically say NBA level athletes because it's not just against great teams. You go look at the tape of him against North Carolina. He cooked North Carolina, scored, I think, like 35 plus in that game. But
there's a difference.
North Carolina doesn't have an NBA level. Harrison Ingram might go second round or something, but they don't have that bona fide. That's a guy that's going to guard you in the first quarter of an NBA game type of player. There are some guys that Dalton could run into. I want to see those type of matchups. That's going to sell me on the idea that, hey, if the Grizzlies want a wing who's ready, like your type of guy, you say you're playing to win right now, that's an older player who can come in and produce right away.
Absolutely. And, guys like that could be that if they are not going to be a big, like a Donovan Clingan or Filipowski. I want someone that can come in and contribute, right? Like, I'm going to be a bit of a homer. You talked about Dalton there. Ryan Dunn of Virginia. Right, you watch Ryan Dunn play basketball, and he's basically Brandon Clark, right? Like that's essentially what he is as a wing player. He's not the most explosive shooter. He's not going to score the ball at all 3 levels, but he's a phenomenal defender. He can come in and play NBA defense right now, and that would help the Memphis Grizzlies right now if you're not going to bring in someone that's going to be a rotation piece consistently. He can develop his offensive game in the G League like they've tried to do with LaRavia and Williams and Roddy before him. That's a guy that you have injuries happen. He comes in, he can defend his tail off for at least 14 minutes a game. That's just one example from a bias perspective. Obviously, there's other names. I would prefer Connect to him. But I do think this is going to be an interesting tournament. I do caution folks, and you alluded to it a little bit there. Sometimes you can overinflate your value or the value of a prospect, right? I think Jalen Suggs comes to mind, and Suggs has had a good year this year, right? Like he's kind of come along as an NBA player this season, but it's been a slow start for him, right? Like if you're going to give Zaire Williams a hard time, it was a slow start for Jalen Suggs too. And he had an explosive March, right? Like that is where he kind of rose. So I think that be cautious with that, but at the same time, you want to see how they play against NBA specific guys. I think that's really good advice. Watching these guys and scouting moving forward. And speaking of scouting, Damichael Cole, we have a bit of an announcement here on Locked On Grizzlies. Damichael and I are noted NCAA bracket fans. We both have a bracket over at ESPN, and we want to invite you, dear listener, dear viewer, to our bracket group. You can go check out our wonderful bracket group, Locked On Grizzlies Madness 2024. It's a public group. All you need to do is hop in. We'll send out the link a couple of times over on X and through social media. But again, Locked On Grizzlies Madness 2024. I'll have a pick. I'll have a bracket. Damichael will have a bracket. We need to come up with a little bit of a wager partner, just like a friendly, sort of wager. Whichever one of us outperforms the other, we'll come up with something fun here on the show. Or maybe our dear listeners and dear viewers could come up with what Damichael and I could wager on. But anyway, what do y'all think? What should we wager on this? Again, we're not talking money here. Damichael has too much of it. I don't have enough. So it's Locked On Grizzlies Madness 2024. Not doing any of the money. It's strictly for pride. It's sheets of integrity, at least on my end. And again, Locked On Grizzlies Madness 2024. Hop on there with Damichael and I, and we'll have some fun going into the tournament. We'll check up on it every once in a while as the tournament unfolds. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we'll close out this episode talking Grizzlies Warriors. They are on national TV, I believe, tonight, which is a big deal for them. So we'll see how all that plays out coming up next here on Locked On Grizzlies. But as you know, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today. Baseball fans, it's tonight. Tonight's the night, 7 p.m. tonight. The best MLB season preview coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today. Again, 7 p.m. Eastern time tonight on March 20th. The first to get local insight from the MLB local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Again, tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Locked On Sports Today, 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Make sure you're checking that out. It's going to be a great watch. This episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The Nissan Rogue 2024 Nissan Rogue is a perfect car for city drives and great escapes. It has class-exclusive Google built in, so you always have an updating assistant to call on for almost anything. It's a perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure with Google Assistant, Google Maps, Google Play, all built right into a 12.3-inch HD touchstone infotainment system. Perhaps you have a family like me and you need a little bit bigger of a car. The 2024 Nissan Armada will change what you expect from a full-size SUV. A rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 people in first-class luxury and style. You can tow bigger and explore further in the 2024 Armada. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, closing out this episode, talking Grizzlies and Golden State. Stay with us. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am Joe Mullinax, joined by my wonderful co-host, Damichael Cole of the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. Make sure you're following him on X at Damichael C. Follow me on X at Joe Mullinax. We've been talking G.G. Jackson as a starter long-term. We're supporters of it. I think it's fair to say, Damichael.
For sure.
We talked about some guys that we're looking for in the NCAA tournament. I'm still on that Fee Fi Fo Fum agenda.
You didn't say his name.
Clingan, right?
Yeah. I mean, we got some new listeners here. They don't know you talking
Donovan
about.
Clingan. Yeah, fair enough. From UConn. If you are a new listener, yes, I'm very into Donovan Clingan. Not as into him as I am to Desmond Bain. If you stick around long enough, I'll do some weird Adam Driver, John Oliver. If you get that reference, we would be friends. I'll go a little bit too far at times with Desmond Bain, but I like Donovan Clingan. Big fan of his as well. And I'm also a big fan of the Grizzlies playing against Golden State because it makes me remember the good old days, Damichael, when these games actually mattered and it was a rivalry, and Draymond Green would say it's not a rivalry, and it makes me think of the code of Steve Kerr and all the nonsense that was. And also,
you're an OG. It makes you think of 2015 too, right?
Yeah, it makes me think of that too. I was just trying to not date myself too much, but yes, it makes me think of 2015. All those wonderful times. How the Grizzlies could have made a couple other runs there in the playoffs and that sort of thing. Injuries upended them then as well as they do now. An interesting game tonight. How the Grizzlies continue to compete. The Warriors, going by record, are the worst team that they've played in the last few. The Thunder being the best. Memphis competed against OKC. Memphis competed against the Kings, pushed Sacramento to overtime. If we're going by the transitive property here, partner, the Grizzlies could win this game on the road at Golden State. What are some things they need to do to get that job done?
They're playing such fluid basketball right now.
They're fun to watch.
They're fun to watch. I think that's the number one thing, Joe. They have to continue to do that. I think we got to go through the injury report first. That is the first thing to point out.
Womp, womp. I get excited and I forget about the injury report.
And who in the world is going to be available? Let's start with Vince Williams because he was doubtful the previous game. And, we talk about it sometimes. Guys go up to questionable. He's not going up to questionable. He's still doubtful against the Warriors. So you're unlikely to have Vince Williams. We know most of the main guys are out. Luke Kennard congratulated him on yesterday. He's still out for personal reasons.
As well he should be.
As well as he should be. Because he and the wife, I don't know if, everything has went well yet at this point, but they're expecting. John Morant is out. Scottie Pippen Jr., Derrick Rose, Marcus Smart, Lamar Stevens remains out. Yuta Watanabe is out due to some personal reasons as well. And Zaire Williams is still dealing with the hip flexor strain. Santi Aldama, questionable for left elbow soreness. So you got a bunch of injured guys. So you're talking about having potentially 8 guys available. Jordan Goodwin, I would suspect, to step back in. Now that DeJon Jarreau's 10-day deal is up. Trey Jemison, you got him on a 2-way. So you're basically talking Jake LaRavia, G.G. Jackson, Desmond Bain, Jaren Jackson Jr., and if Santi doesn't play, Trey Jemison, kind of taking up a big part of the load. So I get it. Like, if you look at the course of the last few games, the trend says that the Grizzlies are going to compete well in this game. I do think that's the case. I caution myself, Joe, they just might not have enough bodies. Like, we just saw 6 guys play over 35 minutes. 6 guys. 8 players played total, and 2 of them were Trey Jemison and DeJon Jarreau. But the other 6, Jake LaRavia was over 40 minutes. John Conchar was at 35. Look at that. Who would ever thought I'd be telling Joe Mullinax that Jake LaRavia would be playing over 40 minutes and John Conchar would be playing 35 in an overtime game against last year's
unfortunately,
number 3
John Conchar played really well.
He did. It would have been a good episode to have you
John
on.
Conchar played really well.
So I feel like it's one of those games, where they could play well, and we'll see. Maybe they prove me wrong. But after all those guys just played 40 plus minutes, 38 minutes. G.G. Jackson, he's young. He can handle it probably better than most. But he played 44 minutes. It's a quick trip. Everyone knows, going from Sacramento to San Fran is skipping a hop. So it's not a huge trip by any means. But I just want to see how long they'll be able to sustain it. They will be tired because it's a challenge based on all the injuries that they have right now.
Absolutely. That's very fair. I want to continue to see that fluidity. I try to stay – people might agree with me. People might disagree with me. I try to stay consistent. I want to see Desmond Bain connecting with G.G. Jackson. I want to see Jaren Jackson Jr. connecting with G.G. Jackson. I want to see those key cogs and components interacting and developing a relationship, developing chemistry. That matters most to me. Is it cool that they're competing and they're not getting blown out? Absolutely. You don't want them to get embarrassed. I think you talked about that a little bit on yesterday's show. You want them to compete. You don't want it to be a 30-point blowout. At this point, you could easily argue it makes sense for them to lose, right, in terms of lottery odds and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're not tanking, right? If they win, they just knocked off a team in Golden State that desperately needs every win they can get as they try to stay alive in the play-in mix out in the Western Conference. So this is a big game for Golden State. This is a game that they should get a pretty good punch. These are, Golden State's fans are going into this saying, this is one we need to get. And hopefully Golden State bloggers and podcasters are pointing out Desmond Bane's back. And if you think Memphis is just going to lie down, this is a different team than they were, just 10 days ago because of the health of Desmond Bane. It's going to be a competitive game, I hope. That's my biggest thing. And I want to continue to see the development of that chemistry between Gigi Jackson, Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane. John Conchar playing well, that's fantastic, right? I truly do mean that. But he didn't do anything that we don't necessarily see him do every once in a while anyway, in terms of playing at that level.
There it is.
Well, you understand. He shot 2 threes. Yeah. He shot 2 threes. Okay. So he did lots of other good things, but the main issues are still there. So
10 boards,
I know what John
5 steals, 2 blocks,
6 stocks, or whatever it was.
Yep.
Again, he played well. I'm not trying to say he didn't. But I know what John Conchar is. I don't know what Gigi Jackson is, especially next to Desmond Bane. And that's what I want to continue to see as this plays out. It'll be an interesting game. It'll be an interesting episode of Locked On Grizzlies tomorrow that I will not be a part of because, again, I am old and washed, and I will be nice and cozy in my bed by halftime at the latest. But Damichael Cole, I know you're going to take care of everybody on the Thursday episode, and you'll be talking Grizz Dubs and maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, and you know what stands out to me about this game? When we're talking about the development of certain guys, this is the first time that Gigi Jackson is going to play an NBA team for the 3rd time.
Ooh.
The book is out to Golden State. Because he's had some good moments against them in both games. Not going to catch these guys off guard anymore. Now you're talking about him being in the starting lineup. I want Golden State knows, like we know, that he's not really a playmaker at this point. This is going to be, I think, the best example of a team attacking his weaknesses. And let's see, what's he like. I would not be surprised if this is a game where Gigi Jackson has a career high in assists simply because Golden State says, prove it. We've played against you twice. We haven't seen you make 3 good bounce passes to the big for easy 2 points. Prove it. And this could be a game where maybe it's the opposite. He struggles mightily, and it's like, still 19. That's one of the biggest things I want to see. I think we're going to be talking about that a lot on tomorrow's show.
That sounds great to me. That's the type of in-depth analysis that you're only going to get from Damichael Cole over at the Commercial Appeal, but also here at Locked On Grizzlies. I'm looking forward to Thursday's episode. And I'm looking forward to you joining Damichael for Thursday's episode and hopefully joining both of us, or maybe just me, maybe just Damichael. We'll see. But I will be back for the Friday edition of the show, regardless. Whoever's here, hopefully you'll be with us, and you're going to be an everydayer moving forward on Locked On Grizzlies. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you're checking us out on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, literally anywhere you get podcasts. Remember, we have the ESPN Bracket Challenge, Locked On Grizzlies Madness 2024. Join us there. Just a friendly competition. See who knows college hoops or is the luckiest guesser, got the best advice from their significant other, whatever the case might be. Check us out there. Join us. See if you can beat Damichael and I in the bracket. Really, really happy to have you with us each and every time an episode drops here on Locked On Grizzlies. Make sure you're checking out Locked On Sports Today, 24/7 streaming channel over on YouTube. Also check it out on Amazon Fire TV and the channels listing. Make sure that you are enjoying yourself, taking care of yourself, and make sure you're right back here with us on Thursday. For Damichael, I am Joe. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy Grizzlies Warriors. We'll catch you next time here on Locked On Grizzlies. Stay locked in.